YouTube, what it do? It's your guy CJ, back with another video, back with another episode of the CJ Wilkins YouTube channel. Thank y'all so very much, man. Like, I really mean that from the bottom of my heart. Thank y'all for rocking with me and supporting my channel, man. I'm up to 22,900 subs right now, and that's impossible without you guys like showing up and liking and commenting and watching my content. So I'm very appreciative of that. That means a lot to me. I wanted to get that out of the way because I don't really think I ever just show love to the subscribers, man, and I never want to come off as unappreciative or anything like that, man. So yeah, big shout out to whether you're a day one supporter of my channel or like you've been, if you just found out about my channel and you're new, I appreciate all of you, man. So let me go ahead and get right into it, man. I don't want this to be too mushy, I know some of y'all like, yo, get that soft shit out of here, man. So let me go ahead and start on what I'm trying to talk about. This episode right here, man, was inspired by a conversation I had with a colleague a few weeks ago, right? And like he was just talking to me about how he's only inspired when he's not around the company of the woman he's with, right? And 2 or 3 friends he got, right? So the woman that he's in a relationship with and 2 guys that like he considered really close friends, they're very negative towards his progress in life, and this is what he told me, like we was talking about, the importance of, ironically, we were having a conversation about the importance of, I was telling him like, half of the journey of like pursuing something in life or chasing something great, half of the battle is surrounding yourself with people who are supportive and people who pour life into you and speak life into you. And he was like, man, I need to have more people in my life who speak life into me, because, my lady and, 2 of my partners, like every time like he brings up an ideal or a concept or something, they kind of shoot it down or, they mock him a little bit. Like they be like, how haters do, how can you do that? Or, they look down on him or whatever. And, it beats him up a little bit. He was like, he was very vulnerable during this conversation too. I was surprised with how open he was. And, I'm not going to say his name or nothing like that. You know what I'm saying? But he was pretty much telling me like, yo, CJ, man, like, I got people around me, man, who I love. And, like he said they loved him. And that's a different conversation. Me personally, I don't think people who love you would ever try to dim your light or try to speak negative on anything in your life, but if that's how he feels, that's how he feels, but that's the foundation of like, like how the idea for this episode came about. So if homie is like listening to this, like shout out to you, man, and I'm gonna share with you guys like what I told a colleague pretty much, but I was telling him, man, like, it's so important in life that you stay on your path. You know what I'm saying? And everyone on this planet, everyone who draws oxygen and they breathe and there's blood in their veins and they're alive, and God gave everyone a mission statement in life, and those of us who are blessed, or some people say chosen, like they'll say the chosen ones. I'll say the chosen ones, we're just the ones who are able to identify the purpose that God gave us, or get close to figuring out the reason as to why God made us, because everybody was made for a reason. Everyone was created for a reason. And no, it wasn't just because your mother let your dad like smash or whatever. Like that's genetically, scientifically, like from like a biology standpoint, that's part of the reason. Like your mom got smashed by your dad. Okay, but on a more esoteric like reason than that, you have a purpose, right? And when you're on your purpose, you're on a proverbial path that I be talking about. Like, everybody has a path in this life. You know what I'm saying? And the reason why you have a path is because the path is like, it's the gateway that leads you on your journey. Because we're all, everyone, every man, every woman, every girl, every boy, we all have a journey in life, right? And that journey is going to be led via the path, right? And the reason why it's important to stay on your path, right, is because the only way you're going to get from where you are to where God created you to be is you're going to have to take the journey on this path, you know? You absolutely have to. Like, it's not an if and or maybe. It's not a, you know, like, you have to do it, you know? So, back to the main story I was telling you, man, part of the way that you stay on your path, part of the way that you stay on track of accomplishing your goals and living out your dreams and pursuing the abundance that God created for you, you got to remove all people, things, and places from your life that pulls you away from your vision, right? So, like, if you're like my colleague who was talking about, you know, his girl is like super negative and his friends are like, they're passive aggressively like hating on him, you know what I'm saying? But some people are so lost in the sauce sometimes, you know. I don't want to call him a simp, you know what I'm saying? But some guys are so blue-pilled, they don't really think about like things from a logical standpoint, right? They think with their heart, you know, and that's why they're beta. That's why they're simps, you know. Because if you use your brain and think logically, like, why these people, like, you know, like, why they pouring dirt on everything that I want to do, or, you know, they're haters, man. Like, they're haters. Like, they're jealous, they're envious, they don't like you, like, whatever the case is. That's not your tribe. And I always tell y'all, like, in these videos, man, like, the selection of your tribe is so important. The people that you pick and you decide who are going to be the people that's in your life, that is very valuable. I don't care if you're looking at it from like a platonic standpoint, your inner friend circle, they need to be your cheerleaders, right? And if they're not going to be your cheerleaders, they can just, like, you know, they could be quiet, you know what I'm saying? But you really don't want to have them like as haters, you know what I'm saying? I don't care like if it's family. I don't care like if it's romantically, right? And a lot of people are in romantic relationships with people who, for lack of a better term, I say don't like them. You know, you can look at our good brother Steph Curry as a prime example. You know, like Aisha went viral, I think, last week or the week before, man, or recently. You know, she was on like another podcast making her husband look dumb, you know. And I may do an episode on that. Like, I try not to dig like too much into like celebrity gossip and things like that. You know, we got the TMZs, and there's a million channels on like YouTube that gossip about famous people and shit, you know what I'm saying? So I try to talk about, like, you know, real life circumstances with regular everyday people, things that, like, you know, people can relate to, everyday people, right? Now, I use, like, you know, celebrities like as an example to kind of bring home a point, you know what I'm saying? But, like, fellas, you don't have to be like the all-time, like, leading three-point shooter in NBA history to have an Aisha Curry, right? So if you have an Aisha Curry in your life, you got to understand, you have to, and it's not at some point, you got to, as soon as possible, as early as you absolutely possibly can. The minute you identify your woman or the person that you're with as a hater, the minute you can recognize this woman is not for my betterment, she is a person who dislikes me, disrespects me, makes me look bad and feel bad, you know, you gotta disband yourself from that woman, bro. You know what I'm saying? And I feel bad for you, like, if you're married to her, you know what I'm saying? Like, if you're in a relationship, you can just break up with her, you know what I'm saying? But, you know, some of y'all got children by women like that, so it's not that simple. You know, some of y'all procreated with women like that, you know, so you kind of got to interact with them, so to speak, you know what I'm saying? Because y'all got a child or children together, you know. But for you fellas who married, man, you gotta sign them papers, man. You know, if you have respect for yourself, you know what I'm saying? Like, I say that. I gotta give that disclaimer because there's a lot of beta male simp, you know, cake mix ass niggas out here, you know. It's a lot of soft guys who they don't want to be alone so bad that they'll tolerate a woman who's out of pocket. They'll tolerate a woman who's disrespectful and a woman who mistreats them and speaks down to them and talks down to them and talks to them in a condescending way. You know what I'm saying? There's some guys out here who really, they don't like who they are so much that, you know, they'll tolerate, you know what I'm saying? Like, they'll tolerate an I eat your curry type chick, you know? Don't be one of those guys, though. Like, if you're listening to my content, you're probably not one of those guys. But if you are a guy who listens to my type of content, you know at least 10 to 15 guys minimum in your real life who are like that, right? So just don't be one of those guys, you know. You gotta stay on your path, man. Male or female. Like, you have to stay on your path. Because here's what happened in life. Like, when you get off your path, a lot of times, and like, I'm not a psychologist or I'm not like a psych doctor or nothing like that, but I can tell you, man, like, I'm intelligent enough to go off my instincts, right? And I can tell you from like an instinctual standpoint, many times in my life where I have been depressed or suffered from anxiety or something, or I've been like super like worried about something, man, it's been really tied to me not being on my path, you know? Anytime in my life where I've been like in a situation, man, to where like I really wasn't like, you know, tapped in, or I was kind of like, you know, not myself, or I was operating or existing on like a lower vibrational pattern than I usually do. 9 times out of 10, it's because I wasn't on my purpose. I wasn't on my path. I wasn't on track. I wasn't on my shit like I'm supposed to be, you know? So when I talk about like being on your path and being on your purpose, you know, there's a lot of value that comes with that. You know what I'm saying? There's a lot of value that comes with being on your purpose. Being on your purpose it does a lot, man, you know? And I know, like, if you're listening and you can relate to what I'm saying, being on your purpose, it does so much for you mentally, spiritually, emotionally, man. Like, when you're on your purpose and you're doing what you're supposed to be doing and you're pouring into yourself, but you're working on it every day, whatever it is that you're working towards. It can be like starting a business or going back to school or, you know, losing weight or being a better husband or being a better mother or, you know, working on your credit score or, you know, trying to add, like, you know, certificates and training so you can get you a promotion or a better job or a higher paying job, you know, like whatever it is that you're working towards, like, to improve. Like, you know, some of y'all trying to learn a different language or something like that, you know. But whatever you work towards, man, when you're actually working towards it, it's such an incredible feeling. It's such an amazing thing when you're actually doing the work day in and day out. And the speed of it really don't matter. Like, I'm not saying, like, you know, you got to be seeing it, like, you know, seeing, like, results right away. But when you're seeing, like, progress, like, even if it's a little progress, like, it means so much. And it does so much for you, man. So when you see people, like, who are not on their purpose and they're not on track, you know what I'm saying? Those are the people who are normally negative. Those are the people who are normally depressed and worried and they super anxious all the fucking time, you know, because they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing, you know. And they'll give you a million excuses too. Like, some people, they'll give you a million reasons as to why they're not on their shit. Like, oh, I ain't got this, or I didn't come from that, or, you know, they give you the woe is me bullshit, you know. I try to stay away from people like that, man, because it's like there's not a lot you can do to motivate people like that, you know. You know what I'm saying? So, like, when I see someone who's who's married to the ideal of like, you know, they can't do this or they can't go there or they can't get to the next level, you know, I don't disrespect them. I don't think I'm better than people, anything like that, but I get the hell away from people like that because I already know, like, your negativity, if I'm around you long enough, I'm gonna adopt that bullshit mindset that you got, you know what I'm saying? And I know I'm one of God's favorites, man. Like, I say that all the time. Like, I'm like, you know, I don't like to say chosen ones, you know what I'm saying, because it's kind of outdated, but I always say, like, I'm one of God's favorites. Like, for real, like, the way that, like, he's blessed me, the things, like, the gifts and the tools that he's given me, you know what I'm saying? And, like, the way that he keeps his hands on my shoulder, you know what I'm saying? I know, like, I'm one of God's favorites, so, like, I want y'all to have that mentality, too, man. Like, try to tap in, like, with your spirituality, man. Like, whatever you believe in, like, whoever you believe in, try to tap into your source, because the source of all things great, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's where you get your power from. That's where you get your source from. Like, if we're devices, our source, like the higher power, our creator, that's the electricity in the outlet that's gonna, like, replenish us. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, man. Like, I'm gonna go ahead and just wrap this video up. But please get back on your path. Get back on track. If you're off track, man, if you're not on your path like you used to be, man, get back on your stuff, man. You know, if you took a break from the gym, you know, get back in the gym. You know what I'm saying? Like, before you go to bed tonight, lay your clothes out. Like, lay your gym shoes out. Or, like, you know, lay out your mat in the living room so you can work out at home. If you're a person that don't like to go to the gym and you like to exercise at the house, you know, set things up so in the morning the first thing you see is, oh shit, I gotta go exercise now, you know? Do that and go from there. Or, like, whatever it is, like, you're working on, create an environment that forces you to go do what you've been putting off, you know? And you'll see your life really change, like, for the better. So as always, it's your guy CJ. Be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. And as always, I'm out. Peace.